Okay, we're about to go live. Can I get someone to confirm that my audio works this week? Hello, hello. All right, happy to know the audio is working this week. Maybe, with any luck, we'll have a better broadcast than we did last week. So, hello everybody. Welcome to our little part of the Homestead Network. If this is your first time seeing our live stream, you can learn all about it and what we're a part of. Just head over to thehomesteadnetwork.com. You'll find that it's a group of like-minded YouTube channels that are all trying to provide live broadcasting, because who wants to watch what's on that other option anyway? So, welcome to J&J Acres. This is our little program, which I call Sunday Slowdown. And I don't know about you, but I have had a heck of a week, so I need the slowdown. So let's take a minute to reflect about what has happened in the past and what we plan on doing in the week to come. Earlier this week, I called up Brad over at Big Family Homestead and was talking to him really because he's been on YouTube half the amount I have, and his channel is outstanding. And I just knew Brad had to have a secret, some little secret that I wasn't aware of. Well, unfortunately, he didn't really necessarily have that golden secret that I was hoping for. Really, he told me that things that I generally already knew, but he emphasized the things that would be worthwhile to focus on. So, in talking to Brad, I learned something, that he wasn't too familiar with my past and was genuinely surprised to learn about some of the things. So I thought we would spend the beginning half, or at least the beginning of this broadcast, talking about who the heck I even am and what we're doing here. And if you have a question, please feel free to leave it over in the comments. If you type it in all caps, Jennifer is monitoring the chat, and she will make sure that it's brought to my attention so that I can answer your questions later. So, who the heck am I? Well, suffice to say, my family moved around a good bit when I was first born. I was actually born in Georgia in a little town called Douglasville, right outside of Atlanta. And don't get too worried. I promise we're going to skip ahead in leaps and bounds and get to the meat of the matter. But I have lived everywhere from Georgia to California to upstate New York to North Carolina, Virginia, Colorado, and now Mississippi. I remember everything since upstate New York. Well, not everything, but I remember upstate New York. I don't remember ever living in California. When I was in Virginia is when 9/11 happened. And I had that desire to serve my country. I joined the Army, and several weeks later was shipped off. And during basic training, I ran into a woman whose name is Jennifer. And anybody who's been in the armed services or has been a part of that process in some way, had a child or a family member that went through it, you've heard the stories about how you're loaded onto buses, taken somewhere, loaded off to buses, basically shuffled around, moved somewhere else. And it's an interesting story, a very long one that I will not trouble you with today, but an interesting story about how Jennifer and I, how many different stars had to align for us to ever even meet. She is from Lancaster, California. From basically for everybody else, and I know I'm already saying it wrong most likely, but from the Los Angeles area. That's the easiest way to think about it. Other than when I was less than 2 years old living in California, I have always lived on the East Coast. So this chance encounter was quite an interesting thing, and I don't really leave it all to chance, I'm sure you realize. Well, one thing led to another, and I ended up getting processed out. I did not stay in the military as I expected to do. I had enlisted with the intent of retiring from that career, and instead never made it through my advanced individual training. So Jennifer and I had kept in touch, and I ended up going to visit her. She was stationed at a base that was only a few hours from my home, so we made a few trips, and in the short space of 5 months of having first met each other, we ended up getting married. And after being married, I became the spouse of the relationship, moving with the enlisted person. So we moved to Colorado. We spent some time there. Jennifer was, we found out after time that Jennifer was pregnant with our first child, Brandon. And we decided that that would be a good opportunity to get her processed out of the military with an honorable discharge, because we learned that, according to everything she was being told, that after 6 months of her giving birth, she would be shipping right back out with her unit, which was in the process of going through getting ready to deploy to Afghanistan. And neither one of us had any interest in that happening. So that's what we did. And we stayed around in Colorado for a few months, well, maybe more than a few months, for a few years, until I ran out on luck as well and was having a hard time finding good gainful employment and kind of, making progress up the ladder, so to speak. And my parents, who were integrated in all of this throughout the entire story, had moved to Mississippi, where one of my sisters and her family lives. And that happened to be here in Mississippi. So we moved to Mississippi with the intention that I would re-enlist back into the military. Part of my problem was a shoulder that liked to dislocate, and I was told that if I had the appropriate surgery done, that I could re-enlist. So I got the soldier done. I got the shoulder done. Got all the I's dotted and T's crossed. Saw too many doctors than I care to think about, and told the recruiters I was in the Army the first time. I was considering getting into the Air Force the second time, and had everything set up, and told them I'm going to move to Mississippi, where my wife can have some help with our 2 children at the time while I'm gone. So we moved to Mississippi, and what happens next is, apparently I misspoke. Somewhere in there I said 6 months when I was supposed to say 6 weeks, so I apologize. Anyway, we moved to Mississippi, and as soon as we do, we're greeted by Hurricane Katrina, which anybody here in the United States would be familiar with, and I'm sure most of the people around the world watching as well. So Hurricane Katrina hits and throws all plans out the window, and the next couple weeks are all taken up by helping with the cleanup process and things like that. Once that's all done, I head down to the recruiting station. And I've got my jacket and everything. I take it into them, and I tell them the whole story about the preparation I've been doing to get in the physical condition I needed to be in to join the Air Force and all those kind of things. And they said, well, we're sorry to hear it. That new orders had just come out in the last week saying that they were not going to accept prior service personnel unless they reached a insanely high quality of you'd have to qualify for basically like Green Beret or whatever the equivalent is over in the Air Force, which I scored well enough as far as the Army was concerned that the first time I entered I was told I could have any job but the band because I didn't have any band experience, but my scores, my ASVAB scores and things, I could qualify for anything. Well, anyway, so that royally ticked me off. Here I was, made huge life decision to move, spent long time working on being able to get into the service, and now I'm being told, sorry, ain't gonna happen. So I went home and I had a pity party, and it took a couple weeks, but I got over my pity party, and I contacted the Army again. Because let's face it, if you breathe, they'll take you. So I had my appointment to go in and see the Army recruiter in just a few days when my sister, who worked at a local naval air station, came by the house with a flyer saying that they were hiring security guards. And it was going to pay me the same as I'd be paid as an E3, which is probably what I would have gone into with having some prior service and some college that I had taken since I had been in, and I wouldn't have to go overseas. So this was looking up and up. So I went and I applied and I got that job, and I started working as a gate guard as a contractor at the local naval air station. And then in fairly short order, so if I can try to get my time a little more synchronized here, that would have been in October 2015 that I started that, or 2005, October 2005 that I would have started that job. While I was working on that base, I went from working as as a gate security guard to being the armorer for the entire security forces on the base, to being the range officer for all of the officers on the base, which was a quite enjoyable thing. I loved working with the firearms. I loved going off. I was a NRA certified handgun shotgun instructor for law enforcement, so that was a really enjoyable thing to go through. And I was working in the training department. Then a position came open to be the deputy emergency manager on the base, and the emergency manager came to me and said, "Hey, this position is opening. I've seen how you work. I like how you keep records. I like your work ethic. Are you interested?" And I grabbed it. So I went and started working over in the emergency management department and helped to come up with the standard operating procedures for 2 different air shows. Through Hurricane Ike and Gustav, the deputy emergency manager was actually indisposed, and so I ran the entire show there, which was quite a fiasco. It's amazing. We live about 3 hours inland from the coast, and so when you have a hurricane that affects the Gulf Coast, the impact to a station like where I was working is all the evacuees that come in. So we have all these evacuees. There's people who evacuate ahead of the storm, and then once the storm has hit the coast, they actually go back down in to get that base back up and running. Then there's the people who evacuate for the duration until the people that go back in say that the coast is clear and that everything's back up and running. And suffice to say, with the military being what it is, and they're constantly trying to lower their footprint and consolidate and things like that, when all of a sudden you have an influx of a couple thousand people to a base, you come up with some fairly inventive ways on how to house them and feed them and secure them. So I had developed a tracking system. Of course, the government wasn't prepared for this, and so there wasn't anything in a budget to be able to buy a piece of software and track people and where they were going to live and how many beds were still available and all that kind of stuff. So we did what I'm sure many of you have heard before. We did a little self-help, and I sat down and I pounded out a program that would allow the CO of the base to open up one page, and it would show him exactly how many families he could house, how many single males, how many single females, how many upper echelon commander level kind of things, all those different kind of housing options, how much space he had. So when he got a phone call saying, hey, I got 200 sailors, 150 males, 50 females, do you have room? He could say yes or no on the spot. And they that program and sent it forward to the southeast region for the Navy as an example of how something like that should be accomplished. So I was pretty proud of all that. Well, in the short time of 2 years, excuse me. Let's see, I'm being told there's a lot of bad buffering. I apologize for that. I had spent some time trying to make sure that the audio was going to be synchronized, and I'm sure that if I try to fix that right now, it's going to ruin my live stream. So I am going to try to fix the buffering. If it does not work, I will be right back. Okay, I have made a change. Can you tell me whether or not that has improved the situation at all? I'm going to have to keep my story going here, because if I don't, then in a minute there's going to be just 5 minutes of pure silence. So if you'll forgive me, I'm just going to move forward and hope that maybe it catches up. I can even see on my screen where it shows that it's buffering. I would like to let you know that I am hardwired into my modem, and that nobody else is on the internet in the house, so I am not sure what's causing the technology problem here. So anyway, enough bragging about that. After 2 years of being on the base and going through those experiences, there started to be a rumor that the contract that my employer had was not going to be renewed. My boss, being a genuinely excellent human being, came into work one day with a copy of the local newspaper. And he put the classifieds down in front of me and pointed to an article and said, "You need to apply for that." And it was the position for the 911 director for Lauderdale County. So I went and I applied for the job. And after going through the process, I received that job. So I stepped away from being the deputy emergency manager to being the 911 director for the local county. And Lauderdale County has about an 80,000 population, I believe is what it was at about the last census. It's got the seat of the town is about 45, or the seat of the county, excuse me, is Meridian. It's about 45,000 people. There's a small town called the town of Marion, which I'm not sure what their population is, but it's not too big. It's not a very large area. But we are a consolidated 911 center, all emergencies from all of those jurisdictions. So that's where I work now. That's what I do Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, so to speak, is administrate that. But the wonderful thing about that place is that I've got a great team of people. I've got people that have been there and are seasoned in it and understand the local area as far as how 911 works here, how the different jurisdictions work with each other and things like that. And they make sure the ship doesn't sink. They tell me, "Jared, we've got to have a patch over here," and I go make sure that happens. Or somebody needs a certain amount of a certain kind of training, I make sure that gets signed off on, so to speak. But I think we all know that the person at the top isn't worth anything. It's the people that are below that person that really make things run. So I want to make sure that they get credit of it. They're the ones who really make things work. So. Well, now this is going to be the complicated part, because now, having told that story, I was wanting to open up for some questions and answers, but with the buffering problem that we're having tonight, I'm not sure how we're going to accomplish that. So let me check in with my moderator. What are you listening to right now?
It's just the video's just now fixing the buffering.
Okay. Oh, me asking about if it helped any?
That's how far the delay is.
Well, I'm guessing since it was that far behind, me fixing anything isn't going to matter, because the only thing I fixed was my video to audio syncing. I didn't realize it was an actual buffering problem at the time that I tried fixing that.
Yeah, it's a huge buffering problem now.
Okay. Okay, well, that was recorded, so I'm sure y'all heard that conversation. You're a good ways behind me. That's the best I can say. So Q and A is going to be a hard thing, but we'll do our best. Let me do this one more time. Will you type to them and let them know if you've got any questions? They can do it in the chat, because by the time I get it out and they ask a question, we may end up being off air. Okay, so let's move along with things. Coming up this week, well, I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's talk about last week. Last week, let's see, what kind of things have we accomplished? Well, I just got done today. Mic test 1 2 3. Mic check 1 2 3. Anybody there still?
I can hear you clicking. Start a new feed, making sure no others are open.
I don't know how to do that. Sorry.
I can hear mic test. Just now.
Testing 1 2 3. Can you hear me now? Oh, technology. We do better with smoke signals. I'm starting to wonder if this cable is bad. Okay, it is 8:36 Central Standard Time. Tell me what time it is when you hear that. Okay. I appreciate that, Sand Hollow. Unfortunately, it's a little difficult for me because when I schedule a live stream, my thought is that I want to be able to talk and then get some feedback and then give you feedback. I mean, that's how communication works. And so I schedule about 30 minutes worth of what would I talk about with the pure intention that you'll talk back to me. So, all right, we're running about a 30-second, 1 minute kind of problem. So, hello, I'm back. All right, folks, an OtterBox will save your phone from shattering against a drywall. I promise you. Okay, moving along. I don't know where in the story things totally died off. Let me check with my moderator. Before I stopped the first stream, do you remember the last thing it said? No? Okay. So, we may have to tell that story again sometime, but there's no longer enough time in the day to share that whole story. So, let me ask you right now whether or not you have any questions that you would like for me to answer. I have no idea what this means. If somebody out there knows what the heck it means to please use a keyframe frequency of 4 seconds or less. Currently, keyframes are not being sent often enough, which will cause buffering. The current keyframe frequency is 5.9 seconds. If you know what the heck that means, leave a comment, because maybe it would fix our problems. But that's what YouTube is telling me, and I don't know what the heck a keyframe is. I have no clue. I have no clue. I'm being told that you're buffering again, so I don't know what this keyframe frequency thing is. I'm digging through. I'm staring over here, not talking to you because I'm reading all of these video format, YUV color space, YUV color range, and I don't understand what any of this is. I can't find any setting that has anything to do with what YouTube is complaining about. Marlene, I appreciate the question. I appreciate you throwing me a rope. We got into homesteading on accident. On one hand, we moved to the country out of the city limits specifically to get away from any kind of ordinance or other restrictions that seem to generally happen inside of city limits. So we moved out into the country, into the county, and by doing so found ourselves wide open to do whatever we wanted to do. So we actually ended up having chickens on our property before we ended up even having a driveway installed the first time. That wasn't really the plan. I mean, we wanted to have chickens were just kind of a fun thing. It wasn't a sustainability homesteading thing. It was you live in the country, you have chickens, right? We started up a little tiny garden, which again was kind of a won't it be fun to have our own food, but that was it. Then things just kept growing. We kept getting into more animals, bigger gardens. Really, at one point, we were paying so much money at a grocery store just to get week to week that we thought to ourselves, what on earth are we going to do when all of these children are teenagers at one time? Basically. essentially. And how much food are they going to eat then? And we thought it would be a pretty smart idea to go ahead and start trying to grow as much of our own food as we could and help to offset the cost of going to the grocery store. So that's really what started it all. Beth, thanks for telling me what the definition of keyframe is, but I'm afraid that doesn't really. I don't know how to use that information to fix the problem. So, bah, you got me. I'm up a creek. All right, so. Okay. Well, I'll certainly get Brad to help me out on that, Tommy. Homesteading in urban or rural. We are rural. I live 12 minutes, which basically is 12 miles, from the city limits. So there we go. I am filming in 720. I'm filming in 1280 by 720. I've got that for my base resolution and my output resolution. There's no reason that should be the problem. I mean, all this is the default stuff that I've used the last 2 times, and I didn't have this. I mean, something had to have changed with a accidental swipe of the finger somewhere, because I don't know. Not seeing anything. All right, folks. Hey, Jennifer, how delayed am I now?
Actually ended up having chickens in our property.
Oh, you're kidding me. Well, I see that the issue is just compounding itself again. And I can't seem to find.
What you asked about is like pixels in a picture.
Okay.
And Wayne, Go for Green Living said switch to 720.
Yeah, you hadn't heard it yet, but I already told him that is what I'm filming at. Yep.
Change your pixels in the control panel.
Yep.
Send lower quality live video.
Well, I'm not sure what it's going to matter at this point.
You're buffering again.
Yep. All right, folks. I'm not going to put you or me through this any longer. I will not be trying this for a 3rd time tonight. You head on over to Homestead Onomics and get ready for the next live show there. Thank you all so much. We'll see you next time.